This morning, the primary election 48 hours away. Already a big turnout among Democrats. Is it really worrying Republicans, though?
Take the firearms first and then go to court.
President Trump at odds with the NRA last week, sounding like he's moving closer to some restrictions on guns. We'll ask how that's playing out here in Texas. And Dallas's natural gas emergency. Hundreds of miles of old pipe, hundreds of people evacuated from their homes. What should the political response be now? State Rep Rafael Anchia represents the affected area and is in studio to take our questions.
From WFAA TV, this is Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley.
Welcome to Inside Texas Politics. An emergency fix ongoing this morning to that widespread natural gas leak just north of Love Field. But this morning we're going to focus on the political response, how we ended up with hundreds of miles of old pipe in Dallas that other cities got rid of long ago. The situation is unfolding in State Representative Rafael Anchia's district, a Dallas Democrat. He is in studio this morning to talk about this, and joining the questioning as always is Bud Kennedy of the Star-Telegram. Representative, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me, gentlemen.
Let's start off with the basic question. Do you have confidence in the pipeline system that's under Dallas right now?
Look, we're in a situation right now where there are a lot more questions than there are answers. I mean, we found out after the deadly explosion on Friday that there had actually been 2 explosions prior to that on Wednesday and Thursday. Then immediately after that we had the evacuation, then people came back to their homes, and right after that 3,000 homes are going to be shut off. No natural gas, no hot water, and people are now moving out of their homes, going to hotels. So it's been a major displacement. I think the way to approach this is threefold. First, we have to be there for the grieving families and the people who are displaced in community to make sure that they're okay. It's a lot of people. 3,000 homes is a lot of people. And I went to the mass last night for the little girl who had passed away, right. And it's clear that she had touched a lot of different lives through her cheer camp work and then through her school. I mean, the church was packed, and so we have to help that family and that community grieve. Step 2 is to make sure people are safe, right? And so at that point we need to stay on Atmos to make sure that they are clearing out the old pipe in that neighborhood, replacing it with new pipe, and that's why people are not going to have gas for a while. And then finally, we need to make sure that the Railroad Commission investigation, which I called for right after the explosion on Friday, runs its course along with the NTSB at the federal level, because we need answers. We need to figure out what was missed in the protocol between the explosions on Wednesday and Thursday and then the big explosion on Friday that took this little girl's life.
We'll get to some of those issues in just a moment here too, but to make sure I'm clear, do you have confidence in the pipeline system that's under Dallas?
Look, I think this may be just the tip of the iceberg, candidly. If you're in homes that were built in the teens, 20s, and 30s, I don't have a lot of confidence that infrastructure is in good shape if it has not been replaced. We need to understand what the replacement schedule is, what time frames we're looking at, and we need to actually see a map of where the old infrastructure is. We have shifting soils with all this rain. We've had earthquakes in northwest Dallas. So it's really important to figure out what the intersection is between the old infrastructure, geology, geography. Those are all the questions that people want answered.
Is there something about the geology of this that makes it more than a Dallas problem? We see and hear Dallas, but there have been incidents in Garland, Wiley in the past 20 years. Is this something that's more than just Dallas?
The answer is that we don't know, but it could be a factor. When you have a hard Barnett Shale and then a more porous geology on top of it, it is entirely possible that that's played some role, but the bottom line is that there are going to be a lot of factors. It's also the aging infrastructure. It's also the couplets. It's also the material that the pipes were made of, how old the houses are, and all that needs to form part of a risk assessment as we go ahead and change out those pipes in the future.
And are you in touch with Sherilyn Craddock or the Railroad Commission? Have they been responsive to this, or are they playing their role?
We immediately reached out to the Railroad Commission, called for the investigation, and our office has been in touch with their government affairs people throughout the entire time.
Atmos said it's been ranking its pipelines, obviously, as according to risk, but the pipeline that exploded a week and a half ago, that wasn't on the replacement list.
That's a problem. That's a concern.
Does Atmos know what it's doing?
Well, look, I think policymakers at all levels have to look at this risk assessment, have to look at the assumptions that go into this risk assessment. Because, when I talked to constituents in that district, they said, hey, we've been complaining about gas leaks for months. And, you know, they've come out and fixed some, they haven't come out and fixed others, but it smelled like gas for a long, long time. So I think policymakers from the top to the bottom, Railroad Commission down to local elected officials, need to understand what assumptions are built into that risk assessment and whether or not we need to accelerate it.
Channel 8 reported on the couplings, problem with couplings in the past. You know, it's not coming up in this, but are couplings a problem here too?
It's entirely possible. We don't know, but it's entirely possible that couplings are a problem. You all have done some investigative reporting for a long, long time about houses that have blown up in other areas. The challenge there is different geography, also different geology, right? So we need to understand if there's a link between those events and these events as well.
What more should the state be doing right now, do you think, to prevent these tragedies?
I've been critical for a long time of the Railroad Commission, usually in its role as a regulator on oil and gas, abandoned wells, et cetera. We need to make sure that the inspection schedule by the Railroad Commission is as aggressive as it needs to be.
Is it right now?
It's unclear. We just don't have enough facts yet to make that determination. We need to make sure that the Railroad Commission is doing their job. We need to make sure that Atmos is doing its job. And then we need to make sure that local elected officials are doing our job as well.
I want to switch off to politics briefly as well, too. House Republicans vow to select a new speaker in caucus all alone, which would essentially cut out Democrats. What's your reaction to that?
I think it's going to be the toughest execution possible. I mean, if they stick that landing, it'll be an Olympic feat, candidly. Look, there is a civil war going on in the Republican caucus, and not only among members of the House. You have the governor weighing in, you have the lieutenant governor weighing in, and I think for them to coalesce around a speaker candidate is going to be difficult. The other thing is, I think we're going to pick up a bunch of seats in November. This is going to be a good year for Democrats, and Democrats are going to play a role in selecting the next speaker. There are a lot of good candidates out there that I think we can get behind. And look, we need to serve as a check against the Senate and the executive power of the governor, something that with the role we played last time as well.
30 seconds left here, Rafael. Democrat turnout obviously is up for the Tuesday election. Do you see a statewide office, though, that Democrats might really have a chance of getting come November?
Sure. I've said for a long time that nobody's going to predict the breakthrough, right? Just like it happened in Dallas County when nobody thought Democrats were going to sweep the county in 06. It's going to happen like that. Pundits are not going to see it. Experts are not going to see it, and it's going to happen. Maybe Beto O'Rourke, maybe Mike Collier, maybe somebody way down the ballot that's going to break through. People forget, when you look at the historical data on this, you know, Republicans in some cases down ballot have only won with 51% statewide. So we're a lot closer than people are. With this energy and this presidency, I think it's going to be a big year.
State Rep Rafael Anchia, good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks so much.
Seems President Trump's tweets always make news, but two of his tweets last week offered support to some Texas Republicans here running for re-election. 8 incumbents in all got it, from Governor Abbott to Railroad Commissioner Christy Craddock, but 2 names specifically might really benefit from the presidential endorsement. Ross Ramsey is co-founder and executive editor of the Texas Tribune, in a chair next to me this morning rather than the screen behind me. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you.
President Trump had kind words for Sid Miller and George P. Bush, 2 Republicans that could probably use it right now, couldn't they?
They could use any help they can get. They're both in situations where they're ahead of their challengers. Bush is the land commissioner and Miller is the ag commissioner. They're ahead of their challengers, but there are a lot of undecided voters in this, and that shouldn't be happening to an incumbent. So they need, you know, a little bit of boost so they don't get stuck in runoffs.
Are Texas Republicans paying attention to this?
I don't think so. I think, you know, the Trump thing helps a little bit. It raises the profile of it a little bit. Donald Trump Jr. endorsed George P. Bush. That helped a little bit, but the problem that these guys have is that they're statewide officials that most people don't know.
Texas, or Tuesday's elections rather, will test the strength of 2 major factions in the Texas Republican Party of Texas. Tell us which ones and how you might score this.
You know, there's a really good sort of set piece in this fight here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in the Cindy Burkett-Bob Hall race for the state Senate. He's a conservative. He's one of Dan Patrick's stalwarts in the Texas Senate. Cindy Burkett is a conservative, but she's more tuned to the business community. You probably find these guys on opposite sides of something like the bathroom bill. And those 2 factions are fighting in little battles for legislative seats all over the state of Texas.
It's a pretty tight race right now, isn't it?
It is a very tight race.
That's that Senate race with Bob Hall. And
that one and a bunch of races like it are very, very tight right now.
Wow. Ross, thanks. Back to you in just a moment.
Okay.
Within hours of mass shootings, you know, 2 topics always seem to rise to the surface: gun control and helping the mentally ill. But lawmakers have yet to accomplish much on either of them. This morning, Debbie Georgatos from 660 AM The Answer says we should also consider something else. Here's her argument.
America is grieving after another horrific school shooting, and many are calling for more gun control. Yet, gun ownership is down in comparison to other times in our history, while school shootings have increased. Gun control is the easy response. The hard conversation, the one that matters, is about exposing and addressing the causes of this violence. Virtually every American mass shooting involves a young man who lacked a father figure. We have an epidemic of fatherlessness, compounded by too much of our culture that rejects God, devalues human life, glorifies violence, and over-medicates. To reduce violence, heal the culture. The Second Amendment exists to keep a balance of power between the government and the people. It is part of our foundational Bill of Rights. We should never lightly agree to restrictions on any of those rights, even in these tender times. I'm Debbie Georgatos, and this is my voice, my opinion.
When we return, the Austin energy attorney who wants to replace George P. Bush as land commissioner. Democrat Miguel Suazo here says the only wall Texas needs to build is a seawall for the next hurricane. Turnout in early voting was up significantly for Democrats. Republicans sound a little spooked by it. Flashpoint debates whether they should be. Inside Texas Politics back in 3 minutes. First, your Sunday Funnies.
President Trump is expected to announce that he's running for re-election in 2020. He's even got a great slogan, pretend the last 4 years never happened.
Come celebrate 128 years of Yes at Conn's Home Plus and pay no interest until 2020. Go to Cons.com to apply for your Yes Money financing and get approved instantly. Then come join the celebration.
Get new floors during Empire Today's gigantic 75% off sale. That's carpet, tile, laminate, and even hardwood, 75% off. Empire makes beautiful new floors easy. See samples in your home, get a free estimate during your appointment, and have your floors professionally installed. Update your floors with Empire and get 75% off carpet, tile, laminate, and hardwood. Schedule now.
800-588-2300 Empire.
Today. Multiple weather models provide us with over 70 updates every day. We digest this data in real time to help determine your forecast.
Updating your weather status. News 8 Weather Minds, sponsored by TXU Energy.
TXU Energy Season Pass. Save 50% on your energy charges all winter and summer long, no matter how you use it.
Honey, did you?
Hot towels! Fresh out of the dryer.
TXU Energy for home and business.
Does your weed and feed work as hard as Bayer Advanced 3-in-1 weed and feed for southern lawns? Let's find out. Both weed and feed, but only Bayer Advanced 3-in-1 weed and feed for southern lawns also prevents new weeds, including crabgrass, up to 6 months. The real bonus comes from Bayer Advanced. Bayer Advanced 3-in-1 weed and feed for southern lawns. Get more from the blue bag.
Liberals are fighting President Trump at every turn. But Land Commissioner George P. Bush is standing with Donald Trump to end illegal immigration. Commissioner Bush campaigned for Trump and supports his agenda. And Commissioner Bush is endorsed by President Donald Trump. President Trump said, Texas Land Commissioner George P. Bush backed me when it wasn't the politically correct thing to do. And I back him now. Commissioner George P. Bush, standing with Trump.
It's time for Freeds to think outside of this box. Our warehouse landlord wants a huge rental increase, but rather than raise our prices, we're moving out, and everything must go. We'd rather sell it than move it. Prices have been slashed at all Freeds locations to empty this warehouse fast. This will be the biggest warehouse liquidation sale in the history of the Metroplex. Shop early for best selection.
When you think outside the box, it's Freeds every time.
Youth bat standards have changed, so flip your bat at Academy Sports and Outdoors. Right now, get 20% off any new bat when you trade in an old one. Academy Sports and Outdoors, for all for less.
Ever since getting elected as land commissioner, George P. Bush has kept a low profile in the press. Democrats say they think he is vulnerable and made mistakes. Miguel Suazo is one of those Dems running against Bush and in studio this morning.
Thanks for having me.
You're an energy attorney based in Austin. There's no Democrat elected statewide, though. Where do you see a path to victory here, man?
Well, 24 years is a long time, and I intend to be amongst the first statewide elected officials from the Democratic Party in 2018.
The Land Commissioner's Office has been in the news a lot lately over the past few months, past couple of years, over its management of the Alamo. Should that landmark be in control? Be controlled by that office?
Well, the reality is that it is controlled by that office, and unfortunately nobody knows where the buck stops in terms of the stewardship and oversight of the Alamo, and that's a failure of leadership. And so I'm running on the platform of actually being qualified and competent to administer the oversight of things like the Alamo.
What would you do differently?
Well, first of all, I'd be very clear with the public about what I intend to do and how we intend to preserve and protect the shrine to Texas. And so I think part of that is communicating and not hiding behind a bunch of nonprofits and hiding the way that dollars are actually being spent and administered in the preservation and protection of the Alamo. So again, that's a failure of leadership more than anything else.
And there have been a lot of questions about the current land commissioner, George P. Bush, and the transparency on that.
That's right.
And you disagree with his handling so far, I presume. It sounds like that.
Well, I think everybody does, including the legislature. You know, his hearing was not pretty for him. And so we need more transparency. And, you know, when you work in a public office, that's the least that you can provide the public in addition to being competent to execute the job.
After Hurricane Harvey, you talked about preventing natural disasters. I lived in Houston for 8 years. How in the world can you prevent a disaster like that's happened there?
Sure. Well, I'm about proactive spending, not reactive spending. It's going to cost us, you know, over $100 billion to recover from Hurricane Harvey by the GLO's own studies and the multiple studies that have come out from A&M and a bunch of other institutions. You know, between 20 and 25 billion would help protect us from future disasters.
What do you spend that money on?
Well, coastal protection and restoration. You know, if the Dutch have figured out how to live below the sea level for decades, I'm sure we can figure it out here in Texas. But what's missing is the political will to do it. I've worked with all the federal agencies who are in charge of helping the state of Texas protect itself from storms like Harvey. And the next one's coming. The next hurricane season starts in June. We're not ready. We're backpedaling, trying to recover from Harvey. We need to be being proactive, not reactive. For a fraction of what we spent recovering from Harvey and will continue to spend recovering from Harvey, we could put in the coastal defenses and protections that we need to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Like a surge barrier or something like that? It's kind
like a seawall, that's right.
Seawall? Okay, you said that was the only wall that Texas needs to build, I believe.
Absolutely right.
Your line on that. You talked about something else on your website that struck me as well too, innovating government, and you use blockchain technology as an example of that, which Bitcoin is part of. What specifically do you have in mind about using blockchain technology to innovate Texas government?
Sure. Well, that's just one example of innovating in government. Blockchain technology is going to innovate and transform the world that we live in. And so I'm for adopting new technologies that can help us be more efficient. There's things like smart contracts. There's things like, you know, smart ledger technology that helps us allocate and understand where funds are going, and that's instantaneous. So those types of things leaders need to be looking at and looking for ways to integrate them into government operations in ways that save the taxpayer dollars.
All right, Miguel Suazo, the Democratic candidate for Texas Land Commissioner. Good luck to you.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Turnout in early voting up significantly for Democrats. Republicans sound a little spooked by it. The question is, should they be? From the right, Mark Davis of 660 AM The Answer, and from the left, former Democratic State Rep Domingo Garcia.
Thank you, Jason, and good morning. Buenos dias. This Tuesday is finally election day in the primaries, and people in the Republican Party are a little concerned. Greg Abbott has said we are in a situation that is raising red alarms. Ted Cruz says Democrats will go through broken glass to go vote, trying to get their voters to come out. And the numbers have been pretty phenomenal. Democrats are outvoting Republicans for the first time since 2006. Are you worried about it, Mr. Mark Davis?
Nope, not in terms of actually losing some seats that we're expected to win. However, one of the worst things you can have happen is complacency. We are a deep red state. We may not be as deep red as we were, and we may be inching toward purple because demographics change, voting patterns change, but this notion that Beto O'Rourke, who is a really good candidate, can beat Ted Cruz is crazy. That Dan Patrick is vulnerable is crazy. Now, could they be single digits? Could it be a 6 or 7 point, which would be amazingly close? Yeah, because he's a good candidate, but please.
This last week, 2 more House districts in seats that Trump won by 20 and 40 points switched Democrat. What we're seeing is a reaction to the Trump effect. And I think that's going to carry on to Texas. And Ted Cruz is not really liked by the Trump wing of the party, and he's totally disliked by the Democrats.
You need to hang
and that leaves an opening for Beto O'Rourke a young, really polished candidate to maybe beat Ted Cruz.
Okay, bless your heart. I may be the only the only Ted Cruz, Donald Trump loving Republican that you actually hang out with. So let me confirm for you, all is forgiven. If you think about when Ted Cruz was at the convention, didn't exactly go on. We didn't blast him, but he failed to fully endorse, and that was not particularly popular. He's been a perfectly good soldier ever since.
I think Beto O'Rourke has a chance, and I think Texas is turning purple, not blue, but we're going from ruby red to purple. From the left, Domingo Garcia.
Happy Election Day. From the right, Mark Davis, 660 AM, The Answer.
President Trump proposing changes to firearms, raising the age to buy them, and taking them away from the mentally ill. Ideas that aren't playing too well with Texas Republicans. We'll start there next on Reporters Roundtable.
Call ARS and Rescue Rooter.
Is your AC running at peak performance? Stay cool and save with a $49 AC tune-up backed by our no breakdown money back guarantee. 888-8000 or visit ars.com.
Got your package?
You can just leave it. Thanks.
Hello? Can I help you?
Hello?
Hello?
This tradition definitely started with the honey barbecue chicken strip sandwich. Me and my friends always went to Whataburger. We started putting out flyers saying Whataburger Social, and it just started becoming a big thing. I'm all about the honey barbecue chicken strip sandwich. It's got that barbecue flavor, that cheese melts on top. It's my go-to sandwich. My best memory was trying to get everybody in the pictures. One week it was 8, 15, 24, we got up to 65 people. This tradition's all about good food, fun, and honey barbecue chicken strip sandwich.
Bo French once in the Texas House, but after the murder of American sniper Chris Kyle, his widow sued Bo French for trying to steal her late husband's company. French then bankrupted the company, leaving Taya nothing. After losing the last campaign, law enforcement discovered French was behind a fraudulent Facebook page attacking Taya and conservative Sheriff Bill Wayburn. Now, French is running a bitterly negative, untrue campaign. Should you let Bo French in the House?
Guys, it's time to make your country bad boy country.
Bad Boy Mowers leads the zero-turn mower world with professional-grade power and performance, cut-quality perfection, and easy-ride innovations that can deliver a smooth ride all day, every day. In Bad Boy Country, we build them better in America to last a lifetime. 747 cc's, 60-inch cut, $49.99.
All-American value, made American strong. Mow with an attitude.
Official WGU Spokesowl here. Today, I'd like to talk about student debt. One reason we created WGU was to help working adults earn a high-quality education without burying them in debt.
Make it stop.
WGU is nonprofit. Tuition is half the cost of many other online universities, so students can graduate with a lot less debt.
That would have been good to know.
Online, nonprofit, and surprisingly affordable. WGU Texas. It's a new kind of you.
Call ARS and Rescue Rooter.
Don't miss the ARS Springtacular Savings Event. Guaranteed best prices of the year can save you thousands on a new HVAC system with payments as low as $83 a month. Call now, 888-8000 or visit ars.com.
Time now for Reporters Roundtable to put the headlines in perspective. Bud and Ross both still with us, and Bernadine Steptoe, our political producer, back as well. Let's start about talking about the main issue that President Trump was, threw out this week. He said, "Take guns first, due process second." My mouth dropped when he said this.
Nixon goes to China.
What in the world are Texas Republicans thinking about this? Well, this was the big fear with Obama the whole time.
The Democrats seem pretty happy with it, Jason.
They really were.
Yeah, they would take those guns. But this is, it's ironic that this all comes up at the 25th anniversary of the incident at Waco, where the Branch Davidian compound, and it turned into a big argument over guns and should the ATF have been there? And now here we are talking about the federal government again, talking about taking guns.
Yes. Republicans were so stunned. And if you look at local as well as national, they all just went silent.
because it's not their issue that they want to control guns. And it just threw them off, totally threw them off.
And Ross, the NRA said, oh, we had a Oval Office meeting with the president. We got everything back together on the right track.
We'll see.
Really?
I mean, you know, this kind of happened on immigration where he said something and got off track and then got back on track. I got to say that Texas Senator John Cornyn has one of the best poker faces in Washington. He was sitting next to Trump when Trump said it. He wants a one-shot bill that doesn't go into all of that. Kept a straight face the whole time.
He didn't flinch at all.
And took the opportunity to pitch his bill.
Well, and it was really the House Republicans who got him back on track on immigration. They're working out to get him back on track about guns.
Let's talk about the heavy Democratic turnout for the Tuesday primary. Can Texas Democrats, can they sustain this through November?
Can they sustain it through Tuesday night is my question. You know, are these votes borrowed from Tuesday vote? Are they people that voted early, you know, for convenience sake, or is there really a new turnout? Are these borrowed voters from Tuesday, or are they new voters, and we get to the end of Tuesday night and go, hey, the Democratic Party got bigger?
You say borrowed voters, are these Republicans voting the Democratic side?
No, are these people who would have otherwise voted on Tuesday but just decided for convenience sake to vote last week or this week?
That's a narrative in a typical election. This is not a typical election. And you're going to see Democrats going to the polls on election night. As you said last week when you dumped that water on us.
Sensitive about it.
No, I think that you're going to see the continued turnout. Democrats are excited.
What do you think, Bud?
What's amazing about this turnout is that you have an education block vote to cross over into the Republican primary and vote for Republicans who favor public schools and public education. So from 3 to 6% of the Republican vote is crossover Democrats. Then you have all these new Democratic voters with no party history that are coming out. It looks like it's not really a Democratic party, it's a veto party.
No question some races won't be decided on Tuesday. Which ones will go to a runoff, Ross?
You know, the two I'm watching really closely are the two statewide races where George P. Bush and Sid Miller are defending the Land Office and the Ag Commission together. They both should be fine. They're both ahead, but they both could be under 50%. And if an incumbent gets into a runoff in a statewide race, that's an incumbent in trouble.
And we saw that with David Dewhurst and Ted Cruz back in 2012. What are you watching, Bernadine?
Congressional races, 32, Pete Sessions. That's the question is who will be in that runoff, as well as Congressional 6. Joe Barton's old seat, as to who will be in that runoff.
On the Democratic or Republican side? Or on the Democratic
These are both Democratic races.
I think we'll have a lot of Democratic runoffs. The Democrats don't seem to be focused on any candidate other than in the Senate race. You know, so we'll see how many of these Democratic voters come back in May. District 6, you might have a runoff on both sides for that Barton open seat, and we'll have a runoff. Probably Tarrant County tax assessor is just a four-way party there. So
how about Pat Fallon, Cindy Burkett? You know, they're both running for Senate as well too. Much of a chance there, do you think? I mean, these seem to be tight races.
I think the Hall and Burkett race is very tight. Yeah. The Fallon and Estes race looks like it's going Fallon's way right now.
Wow.
Jason, this is really about red and blue. It's about which shade of red Texas is, and that's what's decided in the primary.
Gotcha. Thank you guys very much. We appreciate it. And thank you for watching as well. ABC's This Week starts in just a moment. We'll see you again next Sunday. Hope you have a good week.